So we're not looking at New Age fluff here. We're looking at the very stuff that we were warned about in the book of Daniel, the book of Revelation. Jesus said in Matthew 24:3-5, "Take heed that no man or woman deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many." That's exactly the Christ of A Course in Miracles. We were being warned. I remember when I read that, I realized that he was warning me about me, because I was believing that I was a part of Christ. And so this teaching, a little leaven leavens the whole lump, Galatians 5:9. This leaven can turn everything upside down, and Neil Donald Walsh's God, Marianne Williamson's God, the New Age God, says that the foundational principle of this whole New Age philosophy is that God is in everything. And if humanity will accept that as its new foundation, then everything can change. We can have world peace. However, those kind of troublesome Bible-believing Christians are going to have to awaken to the fact that they're God, or they're going to have to be dealt with.
You're listening to Understanding the Times Radio. You're hearing the voice of Warren Smith. Just a word about Warren. You may have joined us late, and he's a former New Ager, part of the New Spirituality, as it's often called now, and Eric Barger's in with me today as well. And we're carrying a lot of products, and Warren is a part of some of these products. We're carrying the book that he wrote called False Christ Coming. Does anybody care? What New Age leaders really have in store for America, the church, and the world. And then we're carrying a number of booklets, and these you can read in just 20 minutes, half an hour. 18-page booklets, very inexpensive. You need to find them under pamphlets at olivetreeviews.org. And Warren, one that we haven't talked about yet, and I'd like to move on to it, and we also need to get a little bit, well, I guess we could say what Oprah has been doing in much more recent time, and that is her association with Rob Bell, which is kind of an interesting union that happened a year or two ago. But you've also written a little pamphlet here called The Danger of Rick Warren's Daniel Plan. Dr. Oz, Dr. Amen, Dr. Hyman, the New Age Eastern Meditation doctors behind the Saddleback Health Program. Very, very troubling, and I've monitored this since 2011. Why on earth America's pastor Rick Warren would want to have 3 blatant New Age occultists into his congregation of 6,000 participating in the Daniel Plan starting in 2011, 6,000 congregants. Dr. Oz, all of them, they represent things that are just plain unstable as it concerns spiritual matters. They lean strongly towards the holistic health, which can be about mind, body, spirit to obtain maximum well-being. Eric, what were your thoughts when this came out back in 2011?
I thought, aren't there 3 good doctors inside the church that have biblical values that could be used instead? But these 3 so far out of what we would consider biblical Christianity, or what could be considered by anybody, us or anybody else. And so that was the thing that shocked me, is where are the Christian doctors out there?
Warren, what is your thought? Why on earth pick on these 3 fellows?
Well, I guess coming out of the New Age and knowing that the plan is to sew the New Age and what was biblical Christianity together, you have to have some transitional things going on. Mm-hmm. So naturally you would start to bring people like Dr. Oz, by the way, may be a great heart surgeon, but he's a major occultist. He has an endorsement on the book by psychic Ainsley MacLeod, and in MacLeod's book that has the front cover endorsement by Dr. Oz, you're told 175 times how to get a spirit guide, 40 times before you get to chapter 1. You asked Eric what his first impression was. When I heard about this, I immediately went to Rick Warren's website, and he had an interview with Dr. Oz. And it was a very straightforward interview just about medical stuff. But there was a link from Rick Warren's website over to Dr. Oz's website, and I clicked that. And the first thing I saw when I got to Dr. Oz's website was New York City want to talk to the dead. And that next week, Dr. Oz was going to have psychic John Edward on to help the audience communicate with their deceased loved ones, which, by the way, on that John Edward type program, Roma Downey did exactly that with one of her deceased parents. People are concerned about, Roma Downey being called a New Ager. Well, that's her background. She's another one of these transitional people that is helping to sew the New Age and the church together. But Dr. Oz is into transcendental meditation. These are all his own, descriptions. He's into Reiki, which employs spirit guides. It's a body energy type thing, spirit guides. He's into the New Age teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg. It goes on and on. He's into past lives. This is another one that Oprah, made in Japan, made in China, made by Oprah. He was on 5 years on her program. Now he has his own show, his own magazine, just like Oprah's, and he's become a very popular figure. One day you'll get some really good medical advice or nutritional tips, and then the next day he'll have the Long Island housewife, communing with the dead. It's unbelievable that more Christians aren't speaking out about this, and I think that scripture, 1 Corinthians 14:8, if the trumpet gives an uncertain sound, who shall prepare himself for the battle? By not talking about these things, they've slipped in. And we're seeing some very strange things where men that were once talking about the New Age, leaders in the church, once warning about the New Age, are now actually starting to bring some of these people into their churches and into their teachings.
Saddleback Church insisted that in no way were the three doctors, who clearly have links to the occult and New Age, Saddleback says in no way they advising people with spiritual matters, these three doctors. And then I think you say, yet they lean strongly towards holistic health, which can be about body, mind, and spirit. I'm going to play, it's about a 3-minute soundbite. We'll just have time, and then we'll go into our last break here. And it's of a woman who attended this Daniel plan a few years ago. It's her observations. She's on with Ingrid Schlueter.
Yeah, Dr. Oz, what's interesting about him is he's married to a gal who is a Reiki master. Wow. And Reiki involves dealing with spirit guides. And another interesting thing is Dr. Oz was introduced to the teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg through his wife and follows his teachings. And I have in front of me Dr. Walter Martin's book, The Kingdom of the Occult, and I'd like to read to you just a little segment here about who Swedenborg is. Says on page 191 of Kingdom of the Occult, the door opened perceptibly for popularizing occultism in the Western world and merging it with Christianity in 1743 when Emanuel Swedenborg, son of a Swedish Lutheran minister, founded Swedenborgianism. His revelations and visions of the deceased marked a new trend among occultists and mediums who often relied upon seances for contact with the dead. Swedenborg claimed he had conversations with biblical characters, church fathers, and church reformers, including Moses, Jesus, Paul, Augustine, Luther, and Calvin. And many occult, esoteric, mystic, mind science, and New Age groups relied upon his groundwork for occultic contact with spirits.
Here we have Dr. Oz. And in fact, go on. I want you to tell people about the book he endorsed called The Instruction.
Yes. There's a book that's just come out. You can find it at out here we have Barnes & Noble in Southern California. You can find it at any Barnes & Noble. But the book is called The Instruction, and the author's name is Ainsley MacLeod. And MacLeod, in the introduction of this book, refers to his spirit guides 36 times, and that's before we even get to Chapter 1. And whose endorsement sits on the front cover but Dr. Oz.
And straight from the endorsement, he comes to Saddleback Church to tell 6,000 people at that church and people across the country who are now going to participate in evangelical churches with this Daniel plan. So we have Dr. Amen promoting a form of meditation from Kundalini Yoga. That's the Christian, the professed Christian on the stage at Saddleback. We have Dr. Oz by video, a proponent of the Swedenborgianism, which is occultism, communication with the dead, which is forbidden by Scripture, a man who is endorsing books talking about spirit guides. So now we have Dr. Amen, Dr. Oz, and then there's Dr. Hyman, kind of adding to this cacophony, this New Age cacophony. Now, bear in mind, people, Rick Warren is supposedly leading people into health, holistic health, mind and body. Where is the gospel? Where is the source of all health? Where is it? Health.